My philosophy is very simple. It's been transmitted by my mom, and for me, food is an act of love, and the garden is at the very center of this love. In this episode, we will celebrate the pear, and there are thousands of varieties.
Hello, my name's Paula. I'm the head orchard gardener here at Le Manoir au Quat'Saisons. Today we're in the orchard and we're focusing on pears. We have 153 different varieties of apples, 30 different varieties of pears. We also have quince, medlar, cherries, damsons, all sorts of fruit in here. So if you're buying a bare root plant, which soon you'll be able to order, you need to get them in the ground as soon as you have picked them up from the nursery or they arrive at your home. If you're not able to do that straight away, put them in a bucket of water, but still try to get them in the ground as soon as possible. If you bought a tree that is in a pot, you can plant that all year round. You don't have to wait for a certain season. Frost damage is a problem. Last year, frost wiped out half our pear blossom, so be watchful for that. That's an unusual thing, but it does now happen. Frost damage on your fruit when they're fruitlets can be just a small ring of russeting around the bottom. The pear's perfectly fine if that happens. Don't get rid of it. You can still eat it. So we do have irrigation in the orchards, but we did find last year that it wasn't a match for the 40-degree heat. I'm a fan of trees digging deep. If you water too much at the bottom of the roots, then the roots aren't going to dig to find water. They're just going to stay at the top, which means when you've got your crop on the tree, you can get windrock because there isn't enough root to keep it in the ground. So I don't water them constantly, I water them when they need it. When you're deciding where to plant your pear tree, it's best not to put it underneath a big old tree because that will be taking up your nutrients. I say that because a lot of people do that. They're quite forgiving, pears, so you can put them in a shady area or you can put them in full sun, but they do need a bit of sun. When you're harvesting your pears, the best time of year, depending on variety, so this can vary quite a lot. So you're looking really between September and November for some varieties. When you're looking for a pear to see when it's ready, you need to pick it underripe. Now, pears ripen from the inside out, whereas apples don't, which means you're not going to instantly know from the outside whether it's ripe. And if it's soft on the outside, then it's probably too far gone unless you're going to eat it straight away. There's no way you can store it if it's got to that point. So what we're looking for is, it needs to easily come off. You lift it up, and then you need to press the neck. Now, some have more of an accentuated neck than this one, but you press the neck, and if there's a bit of give, even though it's hard here, that's perfectly ripe to pick. When you're storing your pears, you need to make sure you're storing a pear with the stem on. Now, some have a long stem like this, some have a short one. It doesn't matter, but if that is off, your pear, which effectively is breathing, is going to lose too much moisture through that hole. So only store pears really that have their stalks still on. You need to have them really so they're not touching. That's not always possible, so check them every week to make sure there's no rot got in. And always store pears that haven't got any bird pecks. A bit of scab can be stored, that's not a problem, but bird pecks will cause rot, so don't store them, use them as soon as possible. Everyone's a bit scared of pruning, but you shouldn't be. It's very easy and you will not kill the tree by pruning it. Well, you need to put more air and light into the tree. That is the point of pruning. You need to look for growth rings on the tree, and that will give you an indicator of how old that growth is. So I can go back from this tip down to here and tell you this is 1 year growth. Once you've found your 1 year growth, you need to cut a third off. So always to a bud, always cut to something. And yeah, that is as simple as that really. Take off anything that's competing. So this one here, for instance, is competing with the centre leader. That will need to come out, it's far too strong. And then others that aren't so strong, we can cut back to 2 or 3 buds from the base, and that will hopefully create a new fruit spur for us. You need to do your pruning when the leaves have fallen off the tree. That's what you're looking for. That way you can see any disease that needs cutting out, and it's easy to get into the tree. Also, the tree is dormant, so it's very important that it's not still growing when you're doing it. And then you can do that up till March or April, but again, in the UK especially, our seasons are very different all around the UK, so really read your weather and how you know your season is, because The south of the country is very different to Scotland, so bear that in mind. Okay, in terms of pests with pears, they don't have as many as apples. That's good news, but they do of course still have some. One of the biggest ones I get asked about is birds. So birds come and it could be just a peck, or they could eat half or the whole fruit. In this orchard, we accept that the birds do that because it only happens for a couple of months, and the rest of the season actually they're helping us with our pest control around the orchard. So they are actually eating our caterpillars and aphids which are harming the rest of the fruit. So sometimes you need some of these pests to get the beneficials in, so we do allow them to do that. Even if you do have some pest damage, we use everything. We have a minimal wastage policy within our orchard, so you can still juice it, you can still cut it out of course, and cook with it and use it as normal. So we have some very interesting varieties in our orchard. This is the humbug pear. This is stripy, it's from the Ukraine. They call it Pysanka, which translates as the Easter pear. And what they do is they pick it in October, November, depending on the season, and then they store it until Easter. They use it as a table decoration because it has the lovely stripes, and then they eat it afterwards, and it's said to be absolutely perfect after they've stored it for that long. So we did try that here at Le Manoir, and unfortunately they rotted, so I do need to do a bit of homework to see how they do it. It's obviously a lot colder there, so maybe that's the key.
Hello, my name is Michael John, head tutor here at the Raymond Blanc Cookery School, Le Manoir Quat'Saisons. Today we're going to show you a classic salad of Le Manoir, which is a lovely pear salad celebrating our orchard pears. This year's been a particularly good year for pears, and we're going to pair that up with some lovely Roquefort cheese, chicory, celery and lovely walnuts. We love using pears at this time of the year. They're in season, they're in abundance in our orchard at the moment, and you can use them for various different things, from sweet to savoury dishes. They're delicious raw, poached, baked, roasted, and absolutely amazing in terms of this salad. So the way we would tell how a pear is nice and ripe, one is to feel, so it should be nice and soft. And one of the best ways is to really just taste it, see the sweetness, because you'll need that in whatever you're cooking with. In terms of pears, that's what they're going to give, as well as texture. If you're poaching a pear, it doesn't need to be so ripe. You can actually cook the pear just slightly under, otherwise if it's too soft, it will break down too quickly. First thing we're going to start off is the dressing. What I've got here is some lovely Roquefort cheese. It's important that the cheese that you're using is lovely and ripe. However, you could use various different types of blue cheeses, anything that creams really well. Roquefort itself has got this lovely creaminess, along with some saltiness and acidity to it. But you could use Stilton, you could use Cashel Blue, Barkham Blue as a substitute. To start off with, it's really important when you do this salad that the cheese itself is at room temperature. This allows the fats that you have in here to be nice and soft, and that we can combine everything else together with the olive oil and to create the dressing. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of warm water in here. Warm water, instead of using something like cold water, as that will shock the fats, the warm water will allow the cheese to be in an emulsion, so it creates that lovely base of the dressing. And using a spatula just to break the fats of the cheese down so they're nice and soft to combine everything together. What we then do is we add a little bit of oil. I'm not really too worried about the cheese not completely broken down, but as long as the vast majority of the cheese is softened down, that will create the base for our dressing. So to this, we're going to go in with extra virgin olive oil in here. And then to cut through the richness of the cheese, we've also got some white wine vinegar, which we're going to add. You can use cider vinegar. This is Chardonnay vinegar, which I'm going to add to this. There's no need so much for salt here, as the cheese will carry that salt through the whole dish, but we're going to put a couple of twists of black pepper and combine everything together. So what you're looking for here is you need some of that vinegar to give that sharpness, just to cut through the richness of the cheese. So I'm actually going to add a little bit more vinegar to this. So with the dressing ready, we're going to now prepare the salad. So with the pear, what we're going to do is cut the pear in half, keeping the skin on. There's a lot of flavour within the skin itself. And you can see here how lovely and juicy the pear is, which is what we want. If it's going to be underripe, you're going to just have some crunchiness in here. You need sweetness that will come from the pear here. Of course, when there's no fruits in season, you could also use dried fruits like dried figs into this and dried apricots also. We then take the pears into quarters and just remove the core. So here we're not cutting the pears too small, so you want texture, but also keeping that lovely natural shape of the pear in the salad. Once cut, we're going to add the pears into the dressing. So we're going to start off by cutting the chicory to the salad. So here we've got two different types. So we've got a yellow chicory and we've also got a lovely red chicory here. This will give contrast in terms of colour, but we're heading towards winter months now. So there's a lot of bitter leaves, which I love in this salad, as a contrast to everything else that's going on. So you could use things like frisée, lamb's lettuce, and various other different types of salad leaves. You can use anything of your choice, but something that has a little bit of texture to it, a bit of bite, a bit of bitterness. So with the chicory, what we're going to do is just cut the chicory in half, and you can cut it in any shape or size if you want to. These are delicious this time of the year, braised really, really slowly with a little bit of orange and actually served with duck. And then roasted in a pan, which are absolutely fantastic. But here we're going to use them as a salad. And then same thing with the yellow chicory. So in half. Next up, we're going to do the celery. So with the celery, again, you don't want too much celery. It's quite a strong flavour. But if you find your celery is quite stringy, you can also peel the celery to remove the fibre parts on the outside. We're going to add the celery in, and this will provide also a lovely crunchiness to this. All the ingredients for the salad, bar the pear, could be prepared in advance, but keep your dressing separate and you can combine everything together once you're ready to serve to your guests. So we're going to add the celery into the salad. Now we're going to take the walnuts. It's important that when you buy walnuts, buy small more often, as they go rancid really, really quickly. So it's really important when you buy them, actually try them. You can also use various different types of nuts. So you could use walnuts, but hazelnuts, pecan nuts, pistachio nuts are delicious in this. So with the nuts, you don't need to necessarily chop them, but just to break them down so you have an even distribution of the walnuts within your salad. So we're going to finish off by chopping the chives. So with chopping herbs, generally they bruise really easily, and so by having a really sharp knife, it helps to really keep the herbs nice and fresh. Using your thumb and index finger on the blade and then 3 fingers wrapped around, it just gives you more control when you rock with the knife. And so we're just going to chop the chives using a rocking motion and using my thumb and index finger just to bring my fingers back so I don't lose them. A lot of the time what you'll notice is that you'll have your index finger here sitting above, and which is okay for small jobs, but if you're doing it for a longer period of time, you have a nerve that actually goes straight up to your shoulder, so it can start to ache after a period of time doing it. And so just thumb and index finger. So that's all the ingredients now in the bowl, which we're going to mix together. I'm going to take my spoon and fork and then just going to mix and combine the dressing that sits at the bottom of the bowl with everything else. And you can see the wonderful colours of the chicory combining together. And I wouldn't really dress this no more than about 10 minutes in advance, as you lose that lovely crunchiness. So we serve this purely as a starter on our winter dinner party at the Raymond Blanc Cookery School. So just keeping it really, really simple. I think just leaving the colours, the way we've cut the pears, do the talking really. And then if you want to, we can finish off with some fresh chives over the top. You can crumble some of that lovely walnuts. And then what we've also got here is some lovely balsamic vinegar. And that's it. So for me, what makes dishes fantastic is this perfect example of a combination of sweet, salty, acid and bitter, and it's also in season. But if you find blue cheese too strong, you could also add a little bit of creme fraiche into your dressing. That will soften the strength of the blue cheese and just make it slightly milder. One of my favourite advices given by Raymond Blanc was to taste, 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 and actually it's one of my favourite parts of my job. I'm going to start off with the pear. That's delicious. You got the sweets, the saltiness, and works so well together. For me, a glass of Riesling with this would be absolutely amazing.